2 years now after his arrest for soliciting prostitutes, Palm Beach billionaire Jeffery Epstein pleaded guilty today.
Investigators think prosecutors should have gone after Epstein on charges of unlawful sex with a minor.
Jeffrey Epstein's accusers have pointed fingers at his fancy island, saying it was the top-secret hub for a global sex trafficking gang. Now, shocking information revealed that David Bank, a former Wall Street Journal reporter, actually went to this island to interview Epstein.
I made my way down there and I said, why haven't you shown me the main house? And he said, jokingly, too many girls.
What terrifying secrets did the interview reveal? Join us as we unravel the most disturbing leaked footage on Epstein Island. From tropical serenity to financial fraud, Little St. James, a tiny island surrounded by beautiful coral reefs, peacefully resides in the crystal-clear blue waters of the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's comfortably situated just off the southeast tip of St. Thomas, one of the 3 primary islands in the Caribbean cluster. However, before Epstein set foot on its shores, the island had a different tale to share. The U.S. Virgin Islands, including St. Thomas, became American territory when the U.S. government bought them from Denmark during the First World War. The motive behind this clever purchase was to safeguard the islands, preventing them from becoming a potential German submarine base. As time passed, the U.S. Virgin Islands evolved into a well-known tax haven, attracting financial experts and companies with generous discounts on both corporation tax and personal income tax. Within this haven, Epstein made a calculated decision to establish his shell companies, setting up shop in a careful, unmarked office situated in a seaside strip mall on St. Thomas. Next to a Sam's Mini Mart and a salon named Happy Nails, Epstein conducted his business affairs. This modest location became the stage for Epstein's complex financial operations, ultimately paving the way for his connection to Little St. James. In 1998, Epstein made a significant move that forever changed the destiny of Little St. James. He bought the island from venture capitalist Arch, cleverly hiding his true identity behind a shell company. The reported price for this desired piece of real estate was just shy of $8 million, a seemingly modest amount for such a prized location. Once the island was in his possession, Epstein wasted no time making his mark. He swiftly got to work, replacing the native vegetation with 40-foot palm trees. However, this transformation was just the beginning, as Epstein had grand plans for his private paradise. Starting in 2007, he started an extensive project involving construction and remodeling, attracting suspicion from local officials. His primary compound on the island nearly doubled in size, evolving into a lavish mansion radiating richness and wastefulness. The mansion featured an outdoor terrace linking the master bedroom and the swimming pool, offering fascinating views of the beautiful surroundings. Yet, it wasn't just the mansion that changed. Satellite images of the island revealed a stretching network of terraces, cottages, beach houses, swimming pools, docks, utility buildings, and even a heliport. The island transformed into a playground for the wealthy and influential, providing every imaginable facility at their fingertips. Lined with swaying palm trees, a network of roads crossed Little St. James, making the smooth transport of guests via golf buggies easy. A trip across the island reportedly took a mere 5 minutes, highlighting its impressive size and costly view. The commitment to complex details was unmistakable, highlighted by a massive sand glass positioned at the island's center, large enough for strolls around it. 2 towering American flags proudly danced at opposite ends, catching the Caribbean breeze. Yet, amid these rich features, one particular structure commanded attention. Situated at the far end of Epstein's rich residence, a low, box-like structure with blue and white stripes attracted onlookers. Often called a temple, this structure was encircled by a terrace decorated with a red web of patterns, sparking intense guesses and conspiracy theories. Theories about its purpose vary. To some, it is an altar dedicated to an Egyptian god. Some even claimed that it served as a resting place for Epstein's parents or a location for ceremonial activities. Other rumors hint at a secret motive, an elevator hiding an entrance to a secret destination. Even as skeptics brushed off the idea of an internal elevator, insights from a builder shed light on the mysteries surrounding this structure. Contrary to the elevator theory, the builder highlighted a special detail, a huge lock securing the temple's entrance, enhanced with a large wooden bar. Notably, the builder pointed out the oddness that, typically, if you aimed to keep individuals out, the bar would be positioned inside the building. Yet, the locking bar seemed to be on the exterior, giving the impression that its purpose was to lock people within. The actual purpose of the temple remained strange. In the year 2016, Epstein broadened his collection of islands by purchasing the neighboring Great St. James. This larger island, spreading across 165 acres, was reportedly bought using the cover of a Dubai businessman named Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem. Sulayem, the head of port operator DP World, reportedly did not know about the island purchase. According to the Herald, Sulayem stated that Epstein had requested to use his name for some business, but he never agreed to it. However, Epstein went ahead with the purchase anyway. Epstein desired to own the island, but the former owner, Danish millionaire Christian Kjær, declined to sell due to Epstein's reputation as a sex offender. Consequently, Epstein allegedly opted to create a shell company using Sulayem's name. Epstein's ownership of the island came to light only after the deal was finalized, and it wasn't until his arrest that he had to officially declare ownership through a court affidavit. The Paradise Papers had previously exposed Epstein's network of shell companies, making it challenging to determine his exact wealth. During a court case, Epstein was compelled to reveal his assets, disclosing a net worth of approximately $550 million. Epstein's arrival in the U.S. Virgin Islands stirred diverse responses from the local community. Some residents believed he was so wealthy that proper oversight couldn't be applied, sparking worries about his actions within the islands. However, what kind of life unfolded on the island as the days approached Epstein's conviction in 2008? A serene haven with a dark side. Epstein was a frequent visitor to Little St. James, making the trip 2 or 3 times each month and staying for several days at a stretch. This island, often described as a serene, peaceful haven, served as a hideout for the wealthy financier. It became a place where Epstein could escape the pressures of the outside world and satisfy his desires. However, Little St. James wasn't just Epstein's paradise. It was also a playground for his guests. These visitors were often accompanied by attractive women, some of whom raised suspicions due to their young age. Epstein's 38-foot boat, the Lady Ghislaine, named after his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, would ferry these women in groups to the island. Maxwell faced 6 charges, which included conspiracy to entice minors to travel, to engage in illegal acts, transportation of minors with intent to engage in sexual acts, and perjury. The indictment outlines that Maxwell encouraged victims to provide massages to Epstein. The court also established that Maxwell was indeed a figure. She worked hand in hand with Jeffrey Epstein, enabling these crimes over more than 2 decades. She emerged as the key individual who aided and allowed him to commit numerous crimes against young females. Some of the alleged victims have indicated that it wasn't just her being an adult, but her gender, being female, played a significant role in how they perceived Jeffrey Epstein before these alleged crimes. Maxwell attempted to present herself as a famously maternal and cool big sister figure. The government also considered Maxwell a flight risk in their detention motion, pointing to her international connections, possession of 3 passports, and substantial financial resources. She had been hiding from authorities and residing in a 156-acre estate in New Hampshire, acquired through an all-cash purchase in December 2019. There had been speculations of her being in Europe or California, but the FBI tracked her down in New Hampshire, where she lived in a lavish home. This continued life of privilege, 25 years after the alleged abuse, is in contrast with her denial of all accusations related to sex trafficking. With a staff of about 70 individuals, including groundskeepers, gardeners, laundry staff, and boat captains. Jeffrey Epstein's island operated like a well-oiled machine. Dressed in black or white polo shirts, the staff were sworn to strict secrecy and instructed to stay out of Epstein's sight while performing their duties. They were also prevented from entering Epstein's 2 offices in the main manor, one of which housed a closely guarded steel safe. Interestingly, Epstein had a special fascination with what he referred to as pirate treasure. This included old rum bottles and pottery scattered across the island. Epstein would pay his staff between $100 and $1,000 for interesting finds in good condition. This was just one of the many traits that added an air of mystery to Epstein's island. Miles Alexander and his wife Kathy, who managed the island from 1999 to 2007, provided insights into their experiences. Despite disapproving of the accusations against Epstein, Miles described him as a kind man. Their job focused on discretion, ensuring they didn't witness anything disturbing to maintain a clear conscience. The Alexanders also revealed some shocking details about Epstein's habits. Epstein preferred eating his meals in private, often taking snacks to his room. In this private space, he received daily massages, a luxury strictly off-limits to the staff. Disturbing him in his room was forbidden, although the Alexanders stumbled upon a box of toys during one of their routine checks while Epstein was away. When the Alexanders were brought on board, they received a straightforward directive: what Jeffrey wants, Jeffrey gets. This phrase captured the commanding influence Epstein held over his island and those who served him, emphasizing that, on Little St. James, Epstein's wishes were of utmost importance. Among the well-known figures Epstein reportedly hosted on the island was renowned theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking. In March 2006, while attending a conference on nearby St. Thomas, Hawking found himself enjoying a barbecue on Little St. James. The closeness of Hawking to the beauty of the Caribbean stands in stark contrast to the dark secrets later associated with the island. Another highly respected physicist, Nobel laureate Lawrence Krauss, was also drawn into Epstein's circle on Little St. James. Krauss, known for his contributions to theoretical physics, raises questions about the extent of Epstein's connections and the attraction of his island hideout. Comedian Chris Tucker was a regular visitor to Little St. James, adding another layer of puzzle to the island's story. The question arises, how did Epstein manage to attract individuals from such diverse backgrounds, spanning the worlds of science and entertainment? A prominent figure in the fashion industry, Les Wexner, the lord behind Victoria's Secret, found himself within Epstein's inner circle. Wexner's connection raises eyebrows, suggesting that even those with great wealth and influence were not immune to the island's fascination. Model Naomi Campbell reportedly visited the island, adding to the list of diverse guests. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair and Lord Peter Mandelson, a key figure in British politics, were also in Epstein's company on Little St. James. Mandelson's presence raises questions about Epstein's connections in the political sphere. One of the most notable guests linked to Epstein's island is Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom. The Duke of York's connection to Epstein has been heavily criticized. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton is said to have visited, though he denies it. Another former president, Donald Trump, reportedly flew on one of Epstein's private jets, but it remains unclear if he visited the island. Even magician David Copperfield is said to have proposed to supermodel Claudia Schiffer on Little St. James, adding a touch of romance to the island's history. It was Epstein's connection with Clinton that prompted David Bank, a former Wall Street Journal reporter, to visit the island. David Bank's encounter and cautionary tale. Bank provides further insights into why he initially became interested in Epstein. He shares that Epstein approached him after a story in New York Magazine highlighted his connection with former President Clinton. Bank expresses his doubt and caution when approaching the story, as Epstein seemed keen on controlling the narrative. He recounts, "I think that put some reporters on the trail. I think that some of them were going to be harsh and straight to the point. And frankly, he came to me and said, 'You know, come down to the island. I'll tell you everything.' And I think he thought he could spin me, and he certainly did try to spin me. Bank clarifies that the intended story was never written due to skepticism and concerns about potential attempts to twist the story. He emphasizes that his visit to the island was for an interview, not a social event. He details arriving at the airport, meeting Ghislaine Maxwell, touring Epstein's jet, and eventually landing on the island. Contrary to wasteful scenes described by others, Bank did not witness bars or girls in bikinis. He also notes being placed in an empty room separate from the main house. The interview delves into Epstein's peculiar choice of conducting conversations in a gazebo rather than the main house on the island. "Meet me down at the beach in the gazebo," he instructed, explaining his avoidance of the main house. When questioned about it, Epstein jokingly cited the presence of too many girls. The conversation unfolded under a beach gazebo for a few hours. During the conversation, Epstein delved into his private island, emphasizing how it provided relief from the complexities of his professional life, where client concerns weighed heavily on him. "I can't be entirely odd in my professional dealings. It has repercussions for many others who might disapprove, leading to consequences for me again. Yet, on my private island or ranch, I can think the ideas I wish to explore. I can pursue the work that interests me, and I have the freedom to investigate as I deem appropriate," Epstein expressed. In another sharp segment of the interview, Epstein seemed worried about the potential misuse of his wealth, fearing unfounded accusations. "My worry is that people can easily make false claims," he remarked. "The notion is that, at the very least, they'll try to extort money from me. They'll tarnish my reputation, and I'll pay them off." He clarified that this fear is the reason for his constant desire to live a private life. "As you gain recognition for philanthropy or giving away money, you become a prime target for scams and identity theft," he explained. However, viewers find oddities in David Bank's account. Landing in an empty room raises questions. One viewer remarked, "So this guy goes to the island to interview Epstein, and he makes sure to mention the room he landed in was empty." The empty room aspect adds a layer of puzzle. Was it a deliberate choice? Or does the story hold more mysteries than initially obvious? Adding to the mystery is the peculiar quality of the audio shared by the journalist. A comment from a viewer points out that the audio sounds as if it were recorded underwater. Considering the expected professionalism of an interviewer, the subpar audio quality raises questions about the legitimacy of someone claiming to be a seasoned journalist. However, the most noteworthy concern comes from another viewer who questions the journalist's actions. Why go through the trouble of visiting his island and not publish the story? It just doesn't add up. There's something he's not telling us. This skeptical perspective challenges the journalist's narrative, suspecting hidden motives behind the island visit and subsequent silence. Trust, a cornerstone in journalism, is at risk, and David Bank may need to openly address these concerns to maintain credibility. The dark secrets of Epstein's Island. As accusations flew, claiming that Epstein's Island was the center of a trafficking ring, understanding what truly unfolded there became most important. It all started with whispered conversations on St. Thomas Island, where locals began discussing Epstein's actions. His private jets, both arriving and departing, earned the strange nickname, the Lolita Express. However, these weren't just baseless rumors. As daring scuba divers approached the island's shores, they encountered security guards patrolling the waters, an open sign that something evil was going on. Epstein's Island wasn't merely a fancy escape, it functioned as a core for his unlawful deeds. At one point, about 200 workers were daily ferried to engage in construction projects. These laborers were clearly instructed to maintain a low profile and focus on their own tasks. Some even disclosed that Epstein occasionally distributed old or surplus materials, seemingly as a tactic to cover his activities in secrecy. It wasn't only the workers who sensed that something was wrong. The folks working at the airport in St. Thomas had a close-up look at what Epstein was up to. They saw him getting off his helicopter, standing on the runway, and getting into his private jet, accompanied by young girls. Some of them seemed too young. A former air traffic controller spilled the beans to Vanity Fair, sharing this mysterious information and expressing shock that such young girls were allowed around Epstein freely. The employees at the airstrip couldn't turn a blind eye to the strange happenings. Frequently, they observed young girls who seemed high school age but wore sported college sweatshirts, just to disguise. It was almost like they were engaged in a peculiar game of hide-and-seek. Epstein boldly showcased his actions in plain view, making it appear like an unsettling game. The girls would sometimes carry luxury shopping bags from high-end designer brands, worsening the unsettling nature of the scenario. Over the passing years, the discomfort of the Alexanders, a couple working on the island, grew as they witnessed the girls strolling with minimal clothing or lounging by the pool, completely naked, creating a continuous display of inappropriate behavior. The Alexanders couldn't help but question the ages of these girls, wondering if their mothers were even aware of their whereabouts. In particular, Miles Alexander had to confront Epstein's requests to smuggle in girls by boat without recording names and passport numbers with the government of St. Thomas. This increased the couple's concerns, ultimately leading them to make the challenging decision to resign from their jobs in 2007. As we delve into the secrets of Jeffrey Epstein's island, one name stands out amid the allegations: Virginia Roberts. Her story sheds light on the disturbing activities that unfolded on Little St. James. Virginia alleges that she was just 17 when she was introduced to Epstein by his associate Ghislaine Maxwell. According to Virginia, she was forced into sexual acts with Epstein and his rich friends. One of those acquaintances, she insists, was Prince Andrew. According to court documents, Virginia claims she was compelled to engage in sexual acts with Prince Andrew on 3 separate occasions. The first encounter allegedly occurred on St. James Island, where she was flown by Epstein's private jet. Virginia asserts that she was introduced to Prince Andrew, and he participated in sexual activities with her. Prince Andrew strongly denies these allegations, stating he has no recollection of ever meeting Virginia. Nevertheless, Virginia's claims gained significant attention and became a focal point in investigations into Epstein's Island. The legal dispute between Prince Andrew and Jeffrey reached a critical point when they settled the lawsuit against him. The specifics of the settlement remain confidential, concluding a lengthy legal battle in a New York court. While Prince Andrew maintains his innocence, Virginia's accusations have cast a shadow over his reputation, prompting questions about his connection with Epstein. The scandal has had extensive consequences, not just for the royal family, but also for the wider inquiry into Epstein's Island. As per the Virgin Islands Attorney General's office, the Epstein enterprise moved underage girls to the Virgin Islands from 2001 to 2019. These individuals were then transported to Little St. James by helicopter or private vessel, where they were made to perform sexual acts and forced into commercial sexual activity. According to the Attorney General's office, it is claimed that Epstein created connections with various defendants, companies, and individuals. They allege that these entities were not only willing to engage in, support, and hide his illegal activities, but were also attracted by the advantages, both financial and otherwise, that Epstein provided. These benefits included coerced sexual labor from the victims. St. James Island played a crucial role in a global network of private flights that transported victims of sexual abuse to various destinations, spanning from London to Paris, Tangier to Granada, St. Louis to Palm Beach, and even Atlantic City. The extent of Epstein's operation was truly startling. It's challenging to understand the depths of wrongdoing that occurred within the boundaries of these walls. The complaint filed by the Attorney General's office not only portrays Little St. James as a site for these terrible crimes, but also as a prison for the victims. Epstein exercised complete control over communication with the outside world, creating an environment where escape was nearly impossible. One particularly distressing incident involved a 15-year-old victim attempting to swim away from the island in a desperate pursuit of freedom. However, Epstein swiftly organized a search party, recaptured her, and seized her passport. Understanding the powerful influence of Little St. James is vital. Epstein's ownership of the entire island granted him unmatched control over the victims and the ability to avoid law enforcement, as emphasized by Attorney General Denise George. It's crucial to grasp that Epstein owning an entire island meant that breaking away and running to the nearest police station wasn't a possible option for young girls. The complaint further uncovers unsettling details. Epstein maintained a computerized list of young girls in or near the Virgin Islands who could be brought to the island. This terrifying revelation highlights the calculated nature of his operation and the extensive measures he took to continue his criminal activities. The investigation into Epstein's Island faced unique challenges. As a domestic offender with private islands and the means to transport victims using private planes and helicopters, monitoring his activities proved difficult. Epstein, denying officers entry to Little St. James and asserting it as his front door, insisted on meetings in his office on St. Thomas, adding complexity to the investigation. Both Little St. James and Great St. James are protected areas due to their coral reefs and wildlife. Local planning officials suspected Epstein of exceeding building permits and fined him thousands of dollars for environmental rule violations. However, these penalties were nothing compared to Epstein's vast wealth, enabling him to continue his criminal enterprise with minimal consequences. The purchase of Great St. James, according to the complaint, was essentially a plan to hide activities on Little St. James. The Epstein enterprise spent over $20 million to ensure Great St. James wouldn't serve as a vantage point for others to observe their actions or visitors. This added another layer to Epstein's web of secrecy, J.P. Morgan Chase's alleged involvement. Now, let's delve into the involvement of financial institutions, including J.P. Morgan Chase, in enabling Epstein's trafficking operation. In December 2022, the U.S. Virgin Islands initiated legal action in a federal court in New York against J.P. Morgan Chase. The lawsuit accused the Wall Street Bank of playing a role in aiding Epstein's trafficking of young women and girls into sexual labor on his secluded islands. The legal claim suggests that J.P. Morgan Chase played a role in Epstein's financial dealings with his network of supporters and victims. Surprisingly, Epstein managed to take out up to $750,000 in cash annually from J.P. Morgan accounts, even after the bank had flagged him as someone involved in exploitation. Lawyers representing the U.S. Virgin Islands argued that J.P. Morgan Chase knew about Epstein's criminal actions but didn't take the necessary steps. They contended that the bank ignored warning signs and continued to assist Epstein in his financial transactions. J.P. Morgan Chase strongly denied these accusations and tried to shift the blame to high-ranking officials in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The bank's legal team argued that the U.S. Virgin Islands protected Epstein from consequences while benefiting from his wealth. In early 2023, the U.S. Virgin Islands started issuing subpoenas to top executives of the bank and other influential figures involved in the case. This included J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon and Google's co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Under oath, Jamie Dimon was questioned by U.S. Virgin Islands attorneys. He claimed not to have any memory of hearing about Epstein or his misconduct until after Epstein's arrest in 2019. Dimon claimed he only learned about Epstein when the crime became widely known. However, during the deposition, an email from Epstein's former assistant surfaced, suggesting a scheduled meeting as far back as 2010. Despite this, Dimon strongly denied any appointment, meeting, or knowledge of Jeff Epstein. Just weeks before the case was set to go to trial, J.P. Morgan Chase made headlines by announcing a $75 million settlement with the U.S. Virgin Islands. While the bank didn't admit fault, the settlement involved allocating $55 million to Virgin Island charities and anti-trafficking organizations, along with an additional $20 million to cover the territory's legal expenses. After Epstein's death, the destiny of his two islands, Little St. James and Great St. James, became uncertain. The U.S. Virgin Islands government aimed to take charge of Epstein's assets, casting a shadow over the island's future. However, the billionaire's executives fiercely opposed it, suggesting that the assets should contribute to establishing a relief fund for sexual assault victims. In a fierce legal dispute, Epstein's executives accused the government of mishandling the estate, claiming funds were misused on lawyers, landscaping, and helicopter fees instead of giving priority to the courageous women seeking compensation. The battle for island control gets more heated, with each side strongly defending its stance. A breakthrough emerged in November 2022. The U.S. Virgin Islands settled with the Epstein estate, marking a significant moment in the tale. The estate agreed to pay a substantial $15 million to the government and half the proceeds from the island's eventual sale. Additionally, $450,000 was set aside for repairing the environmental damage caused by Epstein's activities. Now that the path to a sale was open, investor Stephen Dekoff emerged as a potential buyer. On May 3, 2023, he publicly declared his intentions to acquire both islands for $60 million. Dekoff envisioned a progressive transformation, planning to turn the infamous island into a 25-room luxury resort to open its doors by the end of 2025. Interestingly, the offered price was significantly lower than the initial asking price of $125 million. Meanwhile, Little St. James has become a focal point for curious tourists, urban explorers, and social media influencers. People are puzzled by the island's dark history and attempt to visit and document their experiences. The island has become a popular topic, with travelers often asking about it and local boat operators fixing it into their tours. However, not everyone appreciates this newfound attention. Vernon Morgan, a taxi driver on St. Thomas, expressed his wish for people to leave the island alone. He believes that the association with Epstein has brought dishonor to the Virgin Islands and hopes for a different perception of the region. What are your thoughts on the leaked footage of Jeffrey Epstein's island? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.